Hey there, it's Brett. This is episode 4 on the Let's Build a Ruby Gem series. In this episode, I want to talk just about RuboCop because I think it can warrant its own episode. And in the past episodes, I've been kind of running it and alluding to it, but ignoring it. And I want to stop ignoring it and make it part of the toolchain for building out this gem code. I don't think you actually have to have watched the other episodes to get something of value out of this. But if you have watched them, awesome. And if you haven't, then I'm just going to focus just on RuboCop. RuboCop is, in its simplest form, a code linter that analyzes your code and makes suggestions on changes based on a variety of different topics, from formatting to the actual way the code is built to run and potential problems that might surface. It's a quite useful tool, I think, when working with others, whether it's other open source contributors or teammates. It helps create consistent code and enforce a style guide. But there are some downsides to it, or ways that it can go too far, and I want to talk about all of that in here. But for the first thing is, let's just run it and get familiar with that. If we open up the gem file in the converted gem, the gem that's required is RuboCop. It wants pessimistically 1.7. If we look at the gem file lock, when we look at RuboCop, we have 1.13. This pessimistic pinner, if you don't know, it says it wants anything in the 1.x series, but no major version higher. So if we ran bundle update, we wouldn't get RuboCop 2. It would be the 1. Whatever the latest one is, which in this case is 1.13. Also, what we have in our rake file is we require the rake task here, and can run bundle exec rake RuboCop in our project, which runs RuboCop. And a lot was just output there, which I think can be a little overwhelming. It tells us that new cops are the lint checks. RuboCop takes this analogy really far, where you have cops that check things, and then you have offenses. We can opt into all the new cops by changing our configuration, which maybe that's fine. We will do that at a certain part in the episode. But here's the main part, which is this inspecting 10 files. So when you run bundle exec RuboCop or bundle exec rake RuboCop, it goes and analyzes all of the code that exists in the project. And then it outputs the offenses. So you'll see here in this exe file, we have a line that's too long because RuboCop has this configuration for line length, favoring certain modifiers. You'll see the C for correctable. That means you can do bundle exec RuboCop -A, and it will automatically correct the problems, which is pretty nice. So if you're just getting RuboCop set up, or you make some changes, you can automatically correct them. And that's kind of, that can be quite nice. It's talking about assignment branch condition size for some code. It's saying it's too high. Method length is too long. Certain issues with how we're raising errors. There's a lot here. So it inspected 10 files, found 15 offenses, 8 of them are autocorrectable, and it's giving us some tips, which is all quite a bit. But let's go from these failing to passing, and we'll update the configuration as needed. So RuboCop's configuration lives in a .rubocop.yaml, and you can target your Ruby version. You can set up certain configuration options, which is nice. And sometimes you have to go out to the docs, which we'll do at certain points to learn about what they do. And so let's just start with fixing some of these. So this one, line is too long, 127 instead of 120. I'm okay with that. I don't really mind long lines. I'm going to change the max line to 200. I think that 120 is fine. Some people do 80, and then you end up like taking these long strings and breaking them down. I think I don't want to have code where it's all one long line. That's usually not great. Makes it difficult to edit. It makes it difficult to read and understand what's happening. But for like long strings, it doesn't bother me too much. So we changed that to 20. So now if we run bundle exec RuboCop, you can actually pass a directory or just a file if you want to just run that and see what's going on. And we now no longer have an issue of line length, but we have some other issues. So let's actually go and we'll make some changes to fix it. So if amount nil, errors push, what it wants is it to be one line. So push into the errors array if the amount is nil, and then we'll do the same here. So I don't really have a strong opinion on this. Clearly RuboCop does. That's fine with me. Sometimes with code linting, it's about appeasing the tooling. Sometimes it's about appeasing your teammates. And you can have an opinion about everything, but from personal experience, I think you're on the fast path to being really frustrated about the way other people write code. And I would be wary of having strong opinions on all these things. I guess that's nice about RuboCop. It has these opinions. You can configure them and turn them off if they're annoying. But some of these things I think don't matter too much. Like this code, I don't know, is it any better? Sure, it might be. And it can sometimes help driving out refactoring, refactors for your code to make it more readable or make it more clear. But other times it's pedantic and annoying. And then other times it catches things that are really helpful. And that's where I think the real benefit of RuboCop comes. So we'll get to that in a second. But we'll run RuboCop again. We now just have one failure here. And it's saying use equals equals if you meant to do comparison, or wrap the expression in parentheses if you meant to assign a condition. So in this code we have round where we assign it. This says if, how this works is it assigns args round to the round variable, and then if goes and checks it. And basically it's checking if it's truthy. So if args round is nil, this doesn't happen. So we don't round our code if it's nil. We can also do more of the changing of the if statements here too, which gives us something similar. Actually, no, I guess we can't. So that needs to stay. And so it inspected that file, no offenses detected. We made some changes, so let's just run rspec on the whole test suite, make sure nothing broke. So that feels good. And that's basically the flow of working with RuboCop. You can do bundle exec RuboCop A, which I'll actually show you that in a second. Let's see one that we care about. So style string literals, enable double quotes. It's okay. So here's something it really wants us to care about, is using double quotes for strings. So if we run RuboCop on the exe directory, we have a failure. It's saying prefer double quoted strings unless you need single quotes to avoid extra backslashes for escape. If you type -a, which is short for autocorrect, it says it was inspected, that offense was detected, and it was corrected. If we reload it in Vim, it changed it to double quotes, which is quite nice, especially in large code bases. The autocorrection can really help you out. Also, maybe your code editor, it might support a plugin to automatically run RuboCop's checks when you're using it, which I think is can be nice and be pretty helpful. I don't have that set up right now, so I just run it manually. There's probably ways we can make it better, or make it like a better experience for me running it, but this works for now. And we can also have like our CI system run this automatically, which is pretty cool too. I want to turn off, so we made some changes. We like went through the flow of using RuboCop. We'll do that a little bit more just to get RuboCop totally appeased here. But here it's saying all cops are these suggest extensions. I'm not enjoying that, to be honest. So it's making a lot of noise and I'm not enjoying that. So we'll go and run that again. I guess we need to do this to get the suggestions to stop. So that's interesting. Doesn't seem like it's doing that. All cops suggest extensions. I have a typo. Great. So we can now get that there. We'll so now it no longer suggests those, but we have all these where it's kind of like saying the new cops. Let's enable those and see what happens. Because it's kind of noisy. I don't think it added any new failures. So might as well just opt into the new cops. Maybe you turn that off. I think whatever you want is nice. But let's do a couple things. So for metrics block length, block has too many lines in our spec directory. That's just like not useful to me. I think we're gonna have long block lengths in our spec files. So let's Google RuboCop metrics block length. Let me bump this text up. So when we get to the RuboCop stack, it shows everything, and we have configurable attributes, and it says exclude. So we are going to configure that to exclude it. The way you would do that is in here, we would say metrics block length exclude spec star. So that will exclude the specter. Now if we run bundles like RuboCop on the specter, we'll see hopefully those don't fail. It doesn't want it to be star, so that's interesting. Let's see if that works. Nope, it doesn't seem to like that either. I'm gonna make this a string. Let's see what happens there. Nope, it's still failing. That's interesting. Well, let's Google. Exclude. Oh, so it wants a list like that. Not sure how I would have known that necessarily, but yeah, we've got that. So now it's not complaining about the block length in our spec files, which our spec is all about blocks. So we're going to have long blocks there, and that's okay with me. Let's look at this style frozen string literal comment because it is quite noisy. And let's go to the RuboCop docs. String literal, because this is showing up in all of them, and it's quite difficult. This cop is designed to help you transition from mutable string literals to frozen string literals. Frozen string literals may be the default in future Ruby. This comment will be added below the shebang, an encoded comment. I don't particularly find this useful. And it adds some noise to everything in a way that I'm not sure is helping me write better code. So I'm going to turn that off. Maybe there's something for me to learn here about what this does or why it does it, but for now, I'm turning it off. And let's run it again. So now we just have one issue. It's saying use underscores for the 1000 separator, which I actually like that. So I'm going to keep it turned on here. I think it makes long numbers easier to read. And so we'll keep that on. So that's kind of like when you're getting RuboCop set up. You'll find these offenses, and maybe you agree with them, maybe you don't. And you go and you work on just making it better. I'm going to kind of move quickly through this, and we'll see, and maybe we'll drive out some changes to the code. Now, method length, I don't care if a method is more than 10 lines. So we're going to configure that accordingly. So method length, configurable attributes, max we're going to change to 20. I think 20, if the method's over 20 lines, that's a lot. But I think 20 is a nice amount. Let's go and we'll open up converty RB. It's saying it wants the control flow differently on line 81, or no, 84, sorry about that. So that's fine. I don't care about that too much, but we'll do it to make RuboCop happy. And so that's passing. Now we have one on style raise args, which I don't agree with, so we're going to turn it off. Let's go, and it's just called style. I'm putting these in kind of alphabetical order. We'll just say enable false, because I don't really mind about that. All right, so now when we're in RuboCop, we just have one failure, and it's about assignment branch condition for size. Sizes for convert is too high. What that's saying is, the number of variable assignments, method calls, and conditions is too much. It wants it to be simpler, I guess I'd say, in code. And it's saying it's 22.93 over 17. And I guess maybe it is. Like, we've got a lot going on here. And maybe what I would like to do is, instead we'll say like, it's interesting because I don't want to create a new public method that validates it just to make RuboCop happy. So that's kind of interesting, I think, in some regards. But maybe what we can do instead is change some code around. So this is pretty normal. This is saying the types need to match. And then this is code I think we could refactor. Let's make sure we have a passing test right now. Okay, those tests pass, and let's see what's going on. So it's checking that if these are nil or not, and let's do something like this. We'll say toUnit from unit dot each do. Okay, here's an idea. We can do this. We can say toUnit from unit compact. Nil units is equal to that, and then we'll say and let's rename nil units to be that. So that says, puts those in an array, and then compacts them. So if any of them are nil, it removes. I guess we want the opposite of nil. So let's do the opposite. Ruby keep in array if nil. I think we could do something like I think this might be something like this. All nil. That will say keep all of those in the array that are nil. And we've got some failures. Let's look at Ruby's enumerable docs. That's Ruby 3. We're using Ruby 2.6. So let's just go into here and see. So there is, I want to say there's a keep if or a select. Let's see. Select. Turns an array containing all the elements for which the block returns a true value. So instead of that, if we run that, but we have some failures, so that's kind of interesting. Not real. Expected our unit error, but instead got a fetch error. So what happened there? That's kind of surprising. Raise unit error. I'm a little stumped, to be honest. Let's look at the test code some more, and we'll debug it. So, from not real to something else, expected to raise this error. But instead, we are not getting it. Let's throw the missing units and inspect them. It's nil. Oh, because the code worked differently before, where we push to and from if it's nil. So we can't quite, that refactoring isn't going to work like I thought it would. So it pushes it if the from unit is nil, if that's nil. Geez. Thing is, I don't really mind that code, which I think is part of, like, with RuboCop, the problem, or it's like the problem. It's like not too bad, but okay, let's do what it wants us to do. We can break this code down and appease it in a different way. So we'll have the class method be our entry, but we'll break down this code a bit to have it work. I'm going to try to make it all private because I want this API to be really explicit. We're going to call convert here. So things that this is going to do. In our initialize, we're going to take all of this, get everything set up and configured, and then we're going to def convert. And from unit and to unit and amount are what we use. So we'll say adder, accessor, from unit to unit, amount. And that'll get us pretty far. We've also got from, got to, for all those. So we can say here, we can say like self.amount, self.from, self.here, self.here. And we can check all this. So then what we can say here is validate, we'll say validate units. And I'll put a bang because it'll raise an exception either way. So we're basically just breaking down the code into smaller methods that do a little bit less. And here we'll say validate units type match. And then here we can say validate units exist. And these are pretty similar, so let's just put these here. Get rid of that. Like, that's the kind of refactoring this can drive out. We've got some issues here where it's got some problems with our the way we're going about this. So let's actually call this a converter. We'll put this into private because it's just implementation details. And now we've got a class called converter that is used by our code, and it's throwing some errors, which is interesting. Wouldn't have expected that, but let's see why that is. Supports, so what's failing now is spec 15 supports strings from and to args. Typo there. So that's pretty interesting that that failed. Wouldn't have expected that. And it's saying on line 99. Let's see, it's calling line 70. Which calls out to line 81. We're converting it to a symbol. So what's the deal there? Is it the way that we're catching the constant units? So that's interesting. I'm not sure why that's failing. From unit and to unit seem to be nil. So what's going on there? I think the problem is this needs to be self, and this needs to be self. Private method 2 called. So that's interesting. Let's make those adder accessors. So that passes, but I don't love that because that makes a bunch of methods for getting and setting. So what if we instead do this? We'll use the instance variables instead of local variables to get them. I'm not used to writing code that way, so that's something new. But two unit. But it works nonetheless. Or it should, we hope it does. From. We just gotta give all of these to that. Alright, so we're passing. We have made this converter class, which basically just exists to break down this code. And let's rdoc don't document class, because we don't want people to use this class. rdoc class no doc. Yeah, here we go. Just say no doc all, just so it's not documented. Let's run rspec. So that was RuboCop driving on a refactor. I guess it made this code better. We'll see if RuboCop passes. There might be new problems. Use a guard clause. Is that what it wants? No. It's saying return unless, or return if so they both need to be present. That means they both exist. Okay, so RuboCop's happy with all of our code. RSpec is failing though, so that's kind of interesting. I guess present is a Rails thing. So maybe just this. Return if either, return unless they're both no. Okay, that passes. RuboCop's happy. We refactored some code because of RuboCop. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. I guess this is better. Now this convert method isn't so gnarly, and we've got this converter class, which calls convert, but we don't want it documented because we don't want people using this. We want that simple API to exist for now. And yeah, that covers that. I wanted to show, I think the ABC size is questionable. I think it can lead to better code. But there's something I actually wanted to show which I think is helpful, which is RuboCop catching things like code that you maybe didn't know or realize or intend. And let's say we have a code that's like if true, which you would have some other code, but we call return here, and we run RuboCop. We have this failure, which, well, let's just leave return. That's what I'm trying to get at. RuboCop is going to output and say, through its linting, it realized there's unreachable code. So, and sometimes this happens with like complex nested logic, but this code's never going to get run because we're just we're explicitly returning here. And that's where I find RuboCop to be super valuable. It has these different linting tools that will help you catch yourself before you wreck yourself type thing. And I'm for it for those reasons. I'm against the pedanticness and the striving toward having a perfect code base, because something I've noticed within myself as I've worked as a developer for longer and longer, when you're writing code, you're creating this world that you have extreme control over. The way the code is formatted, how the classes are structured, how you test it. And when you work with others, there's this tendency to want to assert your opinions and thoughts and your view of the world of your code on others, and care deeply about how everything's formatted, and getting frustrated and upset if it doesn't match what you want. And I think there's a real trap there where you can be regularly upset and frustrated with other people contributing to the code and not matching it. And RuboCop seems like a tool to kind of document the style guide and what's agreed upon, but it can lead to a frustrating developer workflow for others. So you want to find a balance there. And I think the things to really care about are code architecture, the performance of the code where performance matters, and maybe care a little bit less about consistency. If a person writes some ifs and an else, but maybe they could have used a case statement and a switch statement, I think if it works and there's not a huge performance difference or a reason not to, it's okay, and it doesn't need to be super consistent. All of this code that we're writing is a means to an end. And I think, to me, the things that matter most are documentation, making it accessible to those who want to contribute, whether they're teammates or open source people who want to contribute, making it hopefully welcoming and friendly, and not making it feel like it's having these strong opinions about everything. I think performance matters, because when you don't think about performance, it kind of compounds on itself, and you end up with a really slow test suite or a really slow developer workflow, which can be quite challenging over time as it grows. But those thoughts are ever evolving. RuboCop, I think it can be useful. I think it can be frustrating and annoying. It's linting, though, it does catch you and can save your butt, and that is I think reason enough to use it. But it's easy to go too far with it, and I think it's okay to turn things off and configure it yourself. And maybe style guides aren't important, or aren't as important as it may seem. Maybe what's most important is catching bugs before they happen, and learning about why we want to do things in a certain way, not just doing it so that it's the same everywhere. I hope that helps. My thoughts have evolved over time, and I'm sure they'll keep evolving, but that is an overview of RuboCop, refactoring because of RuboCop, configuring it a bit. There's so many different cops to read about on their website, on the docs, so dig in and learn about it. There are extensions you can use, and yeah. Hopefully that helps you, and hope you have a good one.